Hello, graduate students. I was talking to another student and I made some comment like peer reviewed or conference. And they looked at me and they said, "What are you talking about?" So I said, the semester's what it is and we've learned a lot, but I need to take a pause here. And I just want you to leave this class with an understanding of some of these terminologies that we use, like conference and publications, and just how this stuff takes place and how you as a graduate student can utilize some of these things and become a better student. So this is more of a realistic real world scenario. So I just want to show you some things and let you understand what's going on when we talk about these terms. The first thing we're going to look at is just a basic where do we find stuff. In the old days, we had to go to stacks or computer systems to find stuff, but now it's all computer. You used to go to the library, open up a computer, find the call number and location of a file, then you had to go to the stacks and pull those up. Those days are pretty much gone. Now it's all on the Mississippi State website as well as other websites too. So for example, let's look at Mississippi State University and let's click on students. And if you click on students, you can see libraries. So we're going to go to libraries. You'll see 4 areas. One is online catalog, databases, EBSCO discovery, and e-journals. The online catalog you can click on, and because you're a Mississippi State University student, you can actually start search stuff. So I can look at, say, Shiloh, and click on that, and you'll see all these books that pop up. This right here says that this book, Shiloh, is at the circulating collection of HCC William Hotclaw Library in Utica, Mississippi. Because Mississippi State University has a partnership with this school, this small library in Utica, you can place a hold here and this item will be shipped from Utica to Starkville and then to your location that you want dropped off. Meridian student could actually have it dropped off at MSU Meridian for free, obviously. So that's what that database is of online catalog. This is the one we spend a large amount of time on, and that is called the database link. So you'll click on this one, and it has all the databases that we subscribe to, and like Confederate newspaper, a collection from Florida, Georgia. These are things that no human being on earth could read all of this. It's just so many sources. And it's amazing how much we have. And these are just databases within a database. So if you click on, for example, the one we always use, and that's EBSCOhost or ERIC. So let's just go to ERIC EBSCO. That's going to be our educational journals. And if you click on this one, now you're inside the ERIC EBSCOhost database, and you can do Boolean searches of words that you wish to use. So you could type in Battle of Shiloh, which I don't know if that's even going to give you. Well, there it is, boom. So Battle of Shiloh, a study of leadership and a terrain walk, which is just an article that someone named James Day wrote. So if you click on PDF, within, I guess, 10 seconds of actually searching that, I now have the article loaded on my screen, 15 or 20 seconds, depending on how fast it does. And here it is right here. You actually have an article that you're reading. You can read the entire article. And it's kind of amazing that you can pull these up. So that's ERIC or EBSCOhost. There's other databases you can search as well, especially if you're in history or in science or English. But that's the database we use. And it is amazing how much time this, I'm going to close that out. This database, ERIC or EBSCOhost, saves us. In the old days, you had to write, you had to research, and you had to go to the library to get all this stuff. But now it's all right here. Another good thing is because you're a Mississippi State University student and you pay a tuition, these fees are covered for these databases. Now, if you're on an off-campus computer and you get to this page, it may ask you to log in, so you'll use your NetID credentials to do that. There's also e-journals and EBSCO discovery, search across a wide range of resources. I use databases for 80% of my research, and I use online catalog for getting books to be shipped to my office. There are some books that I really want to read, and I'll go ahead and get that. And now I do know that Mississippi State University is also experimenting with Kindle, so they're getting more books you can download for free, which is also amazing. So the times to read and to do research and to pull up these articles is really easy and really great. The next thing I'm going to look at is a different phrase called peer-reviewed.
Scholarly articles, academic articles, peer-reviewed articles. You may have heard these terms used by your professor, but what do they mean? Essentially, these are all different ways of describing the same thing, research articles that have been published in scholarly journals. But what is a research article, and how does it get published in a scholarly journal? First of all, the article reports a scholar's research practice and findings, and it's written with an audience of other researchers in mind. Finally, in order to be published and accepted by the scholarly community, the article must pass several quality tests. The most important of these tests is called peer review. We can get a better understanding of the role of peer review if we look at the academic publishing process as a whole. Let's imagine a researcher who wants to share a discovery with the academic community. To do this, he writes a draft article describing his research and findings and submits it for publication in a scholarly journal. Here's where the article has to pass its first test. The journal's editor reads over the article to decide whether it's a good fit for her journal. If it is, she sends copies of the article to a group of experts to evaluate the article's quality in a process called peer review. This is the article's second and most important test. These experts are the author's peers, since they're working in the same research area. And since they're making a judgment about the article, they're sometimes called referees. So peer-reviewed articles are sometimes called refereed articles. Each reviewer evaluates the article by asking questions to judge the quality and significance of the research. Questions like, what is this research about? Is it interesting? Is it important? Is the methodology sound? Are the conclusions logical? And are the findings original? Based on the answers to these questions, the reviewers decide whether the article is worthy of publication in the journal. They then make a recommendation to the editor, either approve the article for publication or reject it. Even if they recommend publishing the article, they usually expect the author to make revisions. The editor, however, makes the final determination whether the article should be approved, rejected, or revised. Rejection is common, though. The most prestigious journals are very selective about the articles they publish, so they tend to have high rejection rates. Some journals reject more than 90% of the submissions they receive. From the time the researcher first submits his draft article to the time it is finally published, several months or years may have elapsed. Once the journal is published, it is made available to subscribers, which are usually university libraries, because individual subscriptions are very expensive, often hundreds or thousands of dollars a year. By the way, like all established systems, the peer review system has its critics, and scholars continue to think about how the peer review process might be improved. The library has tools to help you find peer-reviewed research. If you want to know more about the peer review process or need help finding peer-reviewed articles, ask a librarian for help.
Alright, so that video gives you an idea of what the peer-reviewed process is. This next thing is an example of a journal which has a submission guidelines. So you usually just find a journal. There's a lot of journals out there. You can find them through what our previous discussion was Eric or EBSCOhost. But you can also, this is the journal's website. This is just a social studies journal. It's no big deal. And what you'll see, it says general information, and it talks about their peer-reviewed online journal disseminating original articles, and it has their goals. But if you look at their submission guidelines, this is what you would want to follow if you're going to submit this paper. Material must be original, accurate, in good form, and not under consideration by any other journal. That's something that we all need to be aware of. Many people think, well, I'm just going to submit an article to a journal and then submit it to several journals, and whichever one accepts it, that's good. You can't do that because it's considered unethical, and you actually get in trouble for it. Define trouble. Well, if you're working at a university and they can file a complaint against you on the ethics hotline, which is not a good thing. You can get written up for that. So what that means is you cannot submit your article to multiple journals at the same time. Doing so is considered unethical because you're making multiple journals review it, and then when it's, let's say 3 of them accept it, then you're going to have to call 2 of them and say, I want to remove my article, because you can't publish the same journal in multiple articles, because that would be considered self-plagiarism, which is actually a term. All must be written in English, submit in DOC form. You'll notice it doesn't really have a mandatory limit that exceeds, like you cannot, it doesn't say maximum 25 pages. It used to say that because journals were in print and that cost money. So now with electronic journals, they usually will just say you can do it up to your whatever you want to. This says 1,500 to 5,000 excluding references, but most journals will tell you that you can write beyond that. But that's 1,500 to 5,000. That's going to be a lot. You can about 5 to 20 pages, including the abstract, 50-word maximum with journal bio, and usually there's also a checklist that you can click, which you want to walk through. These are good to go by, because when you're submitting an article, I have learned that when you submit an article, it works out best if you have followed all of their rules. In following their rules, I've just learned that if I submit an article that has mistakes in APA or did not follow these rules, it's easier for them to just automatically reject it. But if I submit an article that has met all of these, then they have to really reject it based on content. And many of them are hesitant to reject on content if everything is done correctly. So that's just something I've always learned. So definitely make sure you follow their checklist. And then you'll submit it to the journal, and when you submit it to the journal, it usually takes, this right here says the journal editors will contact you, and it usually takes 6 to 8 weeks. So that's a pretty fast process. 2 months is really fast. I've seen some last up to a year. I've seen one that was actually 2 years. So that's pretty good and pretty impressive. The next thing I want to look at are conferences, and sometimes this confuses people on what a conference is. A conference would be a local area which has one. So it's pretty easy to define what a conference is, but then you're like, what does that mean? So this, for example, is the National Civil Rights Conference in Meridian and Philadelphia, Mississippi. And you'll see that it's got a picture here. So this is their website. So let's just kind of look at this and what are we talking about? Well, first off, a conference is where they have it at a location. Most of the times it's at a hotel, but sometimes it's not. The reason it's at a hotel is because they have little rooms, conference centers, that have stuff like that. So, and also location is a big factor, because if you have a conference in a nice location, such as New Orleans, then people can go to the conference and also enjoy the area. This conference is in Meridian, and also Philadelphia's partnership with both of them. And you'll see right here it says, scroll down, call for papers. It says the National Civil Rights Conference is soliciting papers, panel sessions, and workshops for the June conference. The conference theme is Rise, Advocate, Educate, and Cooperate. It says the deadline for submission is April 1st. Proposals should be submitted electronically and must include. So the deadline's passed, but I do know that they've extended the call for deadlines. So what we see with this is, what does this mean? Well, if you want to present at this conference, then you need to submit a paper. So it's a unique situation. They are selling a conference for people to go to that they have not built yet. And all conferences do this. So they'll say, this conference is coming up. Who would like to go to this conference and present it? So then you have this call for papers. So if you want to join the conference, you don't have to present. You can just go and pay a certain amount of money. I think here's registration right here. And it says early bird full conference is $125. So you can pay $125 and go to the conference for 2 days. Simple as that. Here's the agenda, it says. So on Friday and Saturday, June 14th and 15th, that's the Juneteenth Festival in Meridian. And on June 16th, they will go to the Mount Zion United Methodist Church in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And they'll actually go 55th anniversary James Chaney and Goodman and Swerner, lighting of the candles, keynote speaker, conference activities. Simple as that. Conference activities, Monday, June 17th. They're going to have registration, opening, keynote, morning sessions, Joan and Dr. Robert Sandoff recognition luncheon, afternoon sessions, and then on Tuesday they're going to have morning sessions. That's it. So really they're going to have 2 of these. So let's look on the session last year and see what that was like. So if you click on the session from last year, this is the actual conference session from last year, June 17th to June 20th. There's the welcoming from the 2 mayors of Philadelphia and Meridian. And then as you scroll down, you can actually see the program guide. This is on Sunday, June 17th at the Mount Zion. Actually, everyone went to that church on Sunday, and they actually had a service like that. They had a sermon, and they had the presentation of the awards, and they had a song. Then on Monday, they had the actual conference. You have the opening keynote speaker, which was Willie J. Greer Kimmons Godson, the late and Honorable Shirley Chisholm was born Hernando, and then they have this one. At 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, they had a session 1A, the fiery furnace, and they had another one, selected martyrs, Keith Parker, Clifton Brown, and Phyllis Welch. So what does that mean? That means at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, if you went to this conference and you paid your $100 and something, you went to this conference, at 9 o'clock, you could go to room A and watch both of these presentations. They go one after the other generally. You could go to room C and watch Youth Empowerment Workshop, Breaking Traditional Norms, and Workshop Leader. Also, you could go to room, so that's simple as that. So that's from 9 to 10. So they actually had 2 sessions going on at the same time, which is pretty good. So you could actually go to the conference and you could design which session you wanted to go to, and your friend could go to the conference and go to different sessions and learn from completely different things altogether. So you can have your own learning experience at these conferences by picking the sessions you want to go to. Now, of course, people would say, well, why can't I go to all of them? Well, that's how they design them. They design them so that you could go to different sessions. At 11:30 to 12:20, you have Room A and Room C. You have A Stone of Hope, the Emmett Till Historic Interpretive Center Movement. And then over here you have the From Civil Rights to Black Lives Matters, which is a different presentation altogether. So you actually have different presentations going on. Then by 4:50, the conference was still going on, and the conference was going on at 7 p.m. And then at 8 p.m. they had a workshop. Simple as that. So the next day, 8:10 to 9:30, and then 9:40 to 10 until that 11 o'clock. They went Journey of the Civil Rights Movement, Mississippi, and then by 1:30 they were done. And then by 4:30 the conference was over. So for 2 days you got to do all of this, which was kind of an amazing experience if you went to this. So that's how conferences work. All right, so you have 2 different groups of people. One group of people are people who go to the conference, and the second thing are people who present at the conference. So now we know how to present the conference, and to do that, you just need to submit an article if you want to submit one. Right here, call for papers. And then if they accept it, then you'd be put on the conference presentation. Now, of course, you're probably thinking, well, if I get accepted for a conference, do I have to pay? Yes. If you get accepted for a conference, you have to pay for the registration. This would be another conference example. This is in Las Vegas, and this is the unofficial one they emailed to me. So on Monday, you have from 8:30 to 10 a.m., an hour and a half. You have like Red Rock 1. You have this person from Georgia, this person from Denver, and you have 4 presentations going on in one room. So that's an hour and a half. So they're going to be doing 20 minutes to 25-minute sessions each. Boom, then the next, and the next, and the next. Boom. Right here at the same time, they have 4 presentations going on in another room, and then they have 4 presentations going on in a third room, and 2 presentations going on in another room, and then they actually have, look at all these rooms going on. This is a larger conference. So I say this because you can go to this conference right when you get there, and then circle, I want to go to see this, and then I want to go to this room real quick, and then I want to go to this room, and you can plan out and pick which sessions you want to go to and create your own learning environment. Really amazing thing to do. and that's really cool. So that's what a conference is, and that's how you present it. And I'm going to send you I'm going to show you a video now of someone who went to a conference, and they're explaining to you how they presented and their advice.
Hey, it's Lucy. I've just returned from Houston in Texas, where I finally got to attend a near mythical conference that I've heard so much about and wanted to go to for ages. And better still, I actually got to present there, my first talk at a major conference. I've spoken to larger audiences, I've spoken where the stakes are higher, say for marks or a job or a team, but this was my debut as a researcher. This was the first impression that me and my research were going to make on some of the most eminent scientists in my field. So it had to be good. I had a really great week. The presentation went fine, I got loads of helpful and lovely comments, I met tons of fantastic people, and now that I'm back, I feel more motivated than ever to crack on with my PhD. And so, both for me to remember at future events, but also to share now that I've been there, this video is about tips I picked up on how to present well at a conference, both from watching other people presenting and also from breaking down my own performance. Because that's all a presentation is. It's just a performance. You are not you up there, you're your research, you're a voice for your own research, and so you've got to make it good. First, making your slides. Before you even start making your slides, you should check what dimensions they're after so that you can best make use of the space. And these are either going to be 4x3 or 16x9. When starting the slides, make a theme and stick to it. Same fonts, same header size, same custom animation style. It makes things look smarter and just a lot more thought through. Keep things as simple as possible, only 1 point per slide, and custom animation is your friend here. Use it to draw people's eye into the most important part that you're talking about. So say for example if you've got a graph with multiple lines on it that you want to discuss, have custom animation bring each line in as you're talking about it. Use minimal text. The hardest slides for me to comprehend were the ones where there was so much text that I didn't know where I was supposed to be looking, and so I spent my time reading through them instead of listening to what the presenter was actually saying. Other than key points or stats you want to hammer home, think of a presentation as a speech that you could give standing up on its own, but you get the luxury of visuals to illustrate your points. Know what colours will work. Projectors at conferences tend to be high quality, but it's not worth the risk, so make sure that your colours will work in low contrast. Also, be consistent between slides, and for things like graphs, make sure that the colours are distinctly different. People will thank you for good quality graphs and diagrams. I think I got more comments about my slides than my actual research. These conference talks, they can be long, they can be dull, so give people a reason to sit up straight and pay attention. And always be asking yourself, is this the clearest way I can convey this message? Next, the talking bit. Now, a lot of these will be things you've heard before, but you will be surprised by the amount of people who don't do them, so listen. Look at the audience. It sounds simple, but people don't. Turn to the board only to do something with the pointer or to check that your clicker is working, which is worth doing every so often. Which reminds me, don't overuse the laser pointer. It's the equivalent of highlighting all of your revision notes if you're just whizzing it back and forward over every single point. Also, you're nervous and it belies those nerves because the pointer's shaking everywhere. And also, your slides really should speak for themselves and you shouldn't need to be training the viewer's eye around, though selected use can be really effective. Another point, and this is just a good general life skill, is don't feel the temptation to fill any pauses with unnecessary sounds or words. So, kind of, sort of. It's okay to just pause. Make sure you talk loudly and into the microphone. It sounds obvious, but you would be surprised how many people don't. Think what is the most important part of your work and then focus your time on that. You're not going to have much time, so you've got to focus only on what is essential to your story. For introductions, keep in mind how specialised your audience will be, so know which basics you can skip past and not waste time covering. Make sure that they know exactly where you come into the story and why your work is new or relevant or important. And to close, don't end on a thank you any questions slide. Leave your conclusions up while the questions are being asked so people can note them down or think of questions of their own to ask. If you have acknowledgements to say, either say them or have them on a slide and then go back and leave your conclusions up. The question section. The question section is the bit you can't really practice. It's usually about 4 minutes long, comes at the end of your presentation, and it's when anyone in the audience can come forward and publicly interrogate you. And I've only got a few comments to say about this. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Don't waffle on. Give other people a chance to ask their questions. And don't get into debates. This part should not be a conversation, so don't be afraid to ask the question asker to come and find you later for a more in-depth discussion. If you can't make out what they said, I think you can get away with asking them to repeat it once, but any more than that, and you're on your own. I just tried repeating the question I thought they'd said back at them before attempting to answer. And lastly, a couple of miscellaneous things. Now, here's one that would have really perturbed me if I didn't know it was going to happen, and that's that people will come in and out of your sessions as you're speaking. This is not personal, they're not bored, people just want coffee, people want to go to another session, people have remembered meetings they'd forgotten, so don't take it personally. The whole thing will go in 2 seconds flat to you, and before you know it, you will be blinking as though coming out of a daze, and everyone will be applauding you, and you'll be wondering, what the hell did I just say? And so there's no point stressing about it. I definitely made some mistakes. At one point I had this really crucial number of 0.15 written on the board, and apparently I said 0.5, but I have no memory of it. And remember, it's not the presentation people are there to see, it's your research. The presentation, it's just the shiny, polished surface at the top, but it's the depth below that, that's what people want to see. So hold your head high, go make yourself and your research proud, and treat yourself to your favourite cocktail afterwards. My name is Lucy Kizik, I'm a third year PhD student at the University of Oxford, and take care until next time.
Just one more thing I want to discuss before we say this is a good lecture or a bad lecture is, according to your database usage, you can also access this thing called dissertation and thesis from ProQuest. It's kind of a really cool tool that you can use to pull up anyone's dissertations. Dissertations are major documents that people write for their PhD. But for example, you can actually just do a quick search here and you can pull up people's, this is just a guy I know, Adam Pugh. You can pull up full text, which is kind of cool. So whenever, this is just someone's dissertation. So if you're working for someone and they have a PhD and they say they have a dissertation, you can actually pull this up. This is their dissertation. This is their signature page of the professors who signed it saying it was a good dissertation. And this is everything that they have right here. It even has their dedication. And then simple as that. So easy as that. So that's something that maybe you want to look at. You can actually look up dissertations. Dissertations are hard to find because they're usually in the library of the university that granted the PhD. And it's also a copy is sent to the Library of Congress. So in the old days, to find someone's dissertation, you had to actually go to the library in question. To show you how powerful this tool has become, you can also go, for example, Martin Luther King, and under author, and you can hit search, and there it is. You can see the PhD in 1955 from J.R. Boston University Graduate School of Dr. Martin Luther King. And you can click on full text, and you can actually see the whole document. What's weird about it is, look at the type. That's 1958, I believe. So that's done by a typewriter. So, ooh, that was just, for me, that is just crazy, because when you did those old manual typewriters like that, if you're typing that and you make a mistake, they had the mistake tape, but I don't think they had it in the 1950s. So you usually had to restart the whole page. All of this right here, this had to be formatted correctly. Just this is, if you ever learned on an old manual typewriter, I learned on an electronic typewriter, but not a computer. This stuff is very difficult to do and time consuming, and no, I don't want to do that. So this is just something cool little tool that you can use, and that is looking up people's dissertations and reading them, which is very good. And a lot of dissertations are published every year, but people don't really get to read them. So when you get to read them, you can actually pull up resources and get good sources like that. So that's the purpose of this lecture, was to kind of get all my graduate students up to speed on such terminology as peer-reviewed, presentations, publications, dissertations, and also EBSCO and ERIC. So now you know how to search for stuff. My homework assignment is going to be really straightforward, and it's going to be about conferences. But just go ahead and open up the homework file at this time, and you can see the assignment. Thank you.